Well, everyone, Andy Syrewicze here with Altaro and Hornet Security, and we're doing a follow-up video to a webinar that we did, I think it was last week is when we did this webinar, and yeah, we had such a great turnout, so many great questions that we didn't have a chance to cover them all. So with that in mind, I've got Hasain Alshakarti, who was one of our presenters last week with us today. How's it going, Hasain?
All good. How are you? How are
Very
you,
good.
everybody listening to this or seeing this?
Yeah, it's going well, going well, and I appreciate you taking the time to come back and share your knowledge and insight. Like I said, we had so many great questions when we did the webinar last week that, it happens quite often where I think in this particular case we went about 10 minutes over trying to get to as many questions as we could, and well, we just didn't have time to get to all of them, right? So we always like to do some sort of follow-up piece of content, whether it's a written blog post or a video like this, where we take a list of the questions that we didn't get to, and we make sure that we addressed them. So I think it looks like we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions here to go through. And I know as we talk about some of the questions and their associated answers, Hussein, we'll certainly talk about some additional resources for viewers to take a look at. So as we mentioned those, as we step through the questions, be sure to take a look underneath this video, where we'll include a list of all of those different resources and links to those resources as well. Excuse me. So I think we might as well just start at the top here. So the first question I've got, Hussein, centers around the M365 spoofing intelligence algorithm. So the question reads, M365 spoofing intelligence algorithm that decides who can spoof your users is not doing a great job. So SPF, DKIM, DMARC are all set up, but the spoofing still happens. Any hints or recommendations as to what to do in that question or what to do in that situation?
Okay, so I guess it's a bit of a definition type of question. What
Right.
is spoofing and what has actually been spoofed? So in general, generally speaking, spoofing the display name is a problem that we basically cannot really get rid of. Well, there are some special configuration where you can get rid of that particular one, but then you need to address those special users that okay, I want transactions between user A and user B never be possible to spoof. So you
Right.
identify some users in your organization as very special users, and you will have a very specific policy type of policies bound to them. That's more in the E5 type of licensing. If we're talking about the built-in protection measures in the Office 365, for instance, so that way the system will trigger on anything that is like close by the username, even if it is just in the display. So normally SMTP doesn't care about the display name as far as the email address is correct, right? So I would dare to say that if you have correctly configured SPF, DKIM, DMARC, if you look at the sender email address, it's never going to be possible to spoof. But when looking at the display, that's a different question, right?
Right.
So, and then just to help ourselves, the admins and the users to get this on the right side of things, if you cannot deploy one of these really high-end type of protection policies, by the way, deploying those kind of protection policies will actually give a sort of a bad experience on the user side because they will be very tricky. So they will probably address way too many things as possible spoof or something like that. So be careful with that. It's not the cure. So I would say to help ourselves and our users a little bit better ways, I love using the tagging mechanism. So you tag externally incoming email messages as external. You can nowadays, there is a native tag display and so on. And the Outlook web and the Outlook client and all clients that supports that tagging situation. Back in the days, we did the tagging with transport rules, right? So you could add a header, add wording in the email body, or in the subject line itself. So help ourselves, help our users with that kind of tech to solve this problem. Because you should at any time expect that anybody can actually tell, hey, this message is originating from Hasain Alshakarti, although the email address is something totally different.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily need to remind of it. So a lot of our users will look at the display name and then, hey, this is a name I know, right? And get tricked by that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do like the tagging idea there, just to kind of gives the end user a little bit of a heads up that, hey, I should be a little bit more suspicious of this email than normal, right?
Yeah. And it's so easy. It's so obvious. So you just need to make sure that you know your clients, you know if you're using the built-in tagging, that you're actually using one of the built-in clients like Outlook for mobile or Outlook for desktop or Outlook for web. Otherwise, you can use the transport rule type of tagging.
Right, right.
Mm.
Very good. On to our second question. So this one reads, we have Microsoft 365 licenses for our users in an AD Sync environment without P2 licensing. So we can't use MFA. What security options? So it reads a little different. So what security options could we implement, I'm guessing, with with our current M365 license?
Yeah. Well, actually, you do have. I mean, even if you're running on a free tier and Azure AD, which is some of the Office 365 licenses will give you a free tier Azure AD. Even though you do actually have the ability to run MFA, there will be limited. The form and the shape of the MFA available will be a bit limited because in the premium licensing, you can pick and choose between the Authenticator app MFA. You can use third party like OAuth tokens, etc. All the whole range,
right,
including the passwordless experience and all of that. But in the lower range, then you will be limited to using the Microsoft Authenticator app. So as a matter of fact, any Azure AD citizen could actually use the MFA, at least using the Azure the Authenticator app to do that, which is a very, I mean, decent way of adding a whole bunch of security.
It's a decent app. I mean, it's better than a lot of the other authenticator apps I've run across. Just personally.
I mean, anything else like in terms of SMS or callback, phone calls, etc. That's a cost driver, right? So we understand the model. They're giving away the free type, which is the Authenticator app base. It's going to consume your mobile data basically,
right?
But it's not going to affect the Microsoft cost on the other side.
Gotcha.
So and then in terms of other security options, as said, we are far from encouraging people to use this, but as far as you start having some P2 licenses, it is sort of a gentleman agreement between Microsoft and the customers. It's okay. Please report how much you're using of the premium functionality, but as soon as you start implementing that for some of your users, you will actually start getting benefits for other users as well.
Right.
So that could be something, I mean, a driver to justify for your business, etc. That, okay, look what's happening now. We enabled this with these sensitive users, and all of a sudden we have a possibility to see what's going on for everybody else as well.
Right, right. Yeah, so kind of gives you a little bit of a chance to kind of test things out and see the additional value in those additional security features.
Exactly.
Very good. Question number 3 reads as, is there a way to get a report of all accounts that are forwarding email? So basically get a forwarding email report, right? Just kind of wondering where they would get that information, what would be your recommended method of getting that information?
Well, depending on what tools, what license level, and so on. But let's put it this way: in the security and compliance portal, that is part of the more advanced licensing, maybe terms of Office 365, you do actually have a specific report with forwarding emails. So it will explicitly tell you this much of emails are being forwarded because of different reasons. Most of them will be that the user has configured forwarding or something like that by an inbox rule or something like that.
Right.
So that's one source of information. If you're at that level, then you can actually get those forwarding reports and you see every single email that has been forwarded, and then you can track it down back to what users are doing that, right? And then the time frame is obviously adjustable because that's a report you can generate, and the nice part of it is you can schedule the generation of that report, right?
Right.
So you get that information continuously. There is another tool actually. If you run the MCAS product or component, the Cloud App Security component, that one can actually trigger on creation of forwarding rule, etc. So you can actually get active alarms or alerts about, hey, somebody has just created a forwarding rule, or there is a forwarding situation or something like that. You can dig into the unified access logs. You can dig in the old style exchange auditing logs if you want to. If you're not on the unified level licensing wise, you can dig through the old style ones, and then you can actually make tracing searches to see exactly what was going on, if there are any traces of anything has been forwarded or not.
Gotcha.
So there are multiple tools. I mean, you can probably put together a very decent story about, hey, these users are using some sort of forwarding. Either it's by role or they just configure it in their account or something.
Right, right. I mean, typical Microsoft 365 functionality, right? Hey, we're going to give you multiple options for solving this problem. You choose the one that's best for you, right?
Exactly. And
Very
I
good.
mean, you can always choose to go the API ways and dig out that information yourself. I guess there are plenty of samples on that path. Just try to find something on GitHub or any other public repositories for that kind of scripting.
Right.
It is possible to do it that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, most organizations probably wouldn't go that route, but I could see maybe a situation where, I don't know, maybe I have a network operations center and I'm doing something with like custom dashboards or something like that, right?
Exactly.
So, very cool. Lots of options there. So I think on to question 4 here. Is there any tool that gives an overview of a tenant to kind of highlight where the security concerns might be hiding? And I mean, for me, the first thing I think of is Secure Score. But you know, I kind of want to see what your thoughts are.
I totally agree with you at that point. Secure Score is doing an awesome job. It's actually, it is maybe a direct answer to this question. It is highlighting what else you need to do in your tenant. It's both related to Azure AD and Office 365. So it's not just looking at one of them, because it's a cooperation between the two. So it will tell you, hey, you need to switch to twist this setting over here. You need to adjust this setting over there. To get to the next level. So of course you can set your goals. You will see like graphs and how you progress and all of that. So it is once again an awesome tool to use. And then there on the same page as the previous question, there are a lot of third-party tools that can do that kind of job for you as well. So depending on who put together the tooling, the script or something, they can dig out some information. Now that the severity or the criticalness of that information they present for you with different other third-party toolings, obviously according to the views of whomever created the tool, right? So it depends. If I think this is a very important thing and I make a tool for it, then that's my opinion. But the Secure Score that Microsoft puts together, it's from a baseline type of thinking structure, right? And give us a comparison. You can tell it somehow what kind of where in the world, what kind of legislation, what kind of requirements you have, et cetera, et cetera. So it can give you a bit different or a bit more adjusted answers for your situation.
Gotcha. Very good. I love that too. I gotta say, I kind of like how they've almost gamified it, because they give you the score, right? It's like, okay, exactly. I need to get the highest score possible, right? So
yeah. Set your goals and see how you'll be doing
over
time.
Exactly. All right, next question. Is there some kind of automatic logic check mechanism for MFA conditional access policies, or do you have to manually check if a certain situation is checked correctly? So I'm guessing they're kind of talking about conditional access simulation, right? And whether they have to see the manual, if they have to manually see the outcome, or if there's something that can let them know automatically.
Yeah. Well, because it's a combination of logical rules and conditions, it is very hard for anybody to tell whether this is right or wrong, right? So that's why we do have the so-called what if tool built into the system. So when you put together your conditional access policies, there is a what if link on the top line, top toolbar-ish in that page. So you can actually use that to just test your tools or test your conditional access rules. So you will put together, okay, I'm putting this rule for this scenario. Let's see how it hits. And then you put all the values. Okay, it's that user or this group or this type of device, this type of location, this geolocation, IP address, etc. All the components are available there, down to the specific application and so on. And then you will see exactly what conditional access rules are hitting that situation, which ones are being bypassed, which ones are being applied, and so on. I would say that's an awesome way to do it.
Yep.
Otherwise, I mean, yes, we can do it theoretically, like putting this on paper or just twisting this in our heads, but it's much easier when you have that tooling. So use that what if tooling.
Yeah, definitely. That's always been my recommendation too. Is like, okay, I've set up this policy. I think this is how it's going to play out. Tell me if that's how it's going to play out or not, right? And I think the only situation I've ever been in where where I've kind of been in that situation is, one, I'm making a new policy, or two, somebody has told me that, hey, this is acting weird, and I'm in some sort of troubleshooting mode, right?
Actually, Microsoft has added sort of recently, when you look at the sign-in logs, so when you look, there is a conditional access policy tab. When you look there, you can see nowadays exactly what policies has been applied or skipped, and then you can see the reasoning behind that as well. So if you have a user reporting something that says, hey, it acting weird when I do it this way or that way, so you don't need to be able to re-simulate that 100%. You can actually go back to the sign-in logs and start looking at those artifacts, because it's nowadays showing the reason why it actually skipped, for what part in that logic it actually skipped that conditional access rule for you.
Good. Lots of good tools available there as well. The next question we have centers around application authorizations. Got ahead of myself there. So the question is, is there an easy way to see what the user has consented to rather than sorting it by application? So I've got a user, I know they've authorized a number of applications. Can I see what that user has authorized as opposed to, seeing by application?
I guess it's easier to go the other way around. Maybe try to script that thingy instead. So collect all the information that is available. That will probably give you a better way to deal with this, I guess. So script it out from the system and see exactly what applications we have, what users has consented, and just push it somewhere else so you feel more comfortable to use it. Like, I know a lot of customers of ours are using Excel for that kind of thing. So they periodically do, or whenever they have an audit on this part, maybe just before they want to implement a more specific model in regards to whitelist, blacklist applications, and so on. They want to understand what's going on. So they actually dump the whole content from there using the APIs, and then work on it with some other tooling. Maybe if it is a very large organization, from a maybe Power BI style perspective or something like that, could be a better way to. I wish there has been sometimes some better interfaces for some things. But, I mean, a UI is a UI, right?
Right. Well, I mean, maybe they'll get there someday. They'll improve that particular section. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think that's the route to go at this particular point in time. All right. Next question. Now, I think this is one of them that you and I were talking about a little bit before we hit the record button here. But, so what is the best way to set up multi-factor authentication for tenant admin accounts that are used by multiple individuals in a team? So I'm thinking like a large IT organization, or maybe a service provider where you've got, a whole team of help desk folks using the same tenant administrator accounts.
I mean, as far as it is possible / feasible for your organization in question, try to use dedicated accounts. If it is really not possible to use the dedicated account, because I mean that kind of admin, a tenant admin or a global admin / company admin, is so delicate. So you don't want get that account to get
Right.
feeds and start wandering about like all over the place. So you need to really to be very, very careful with that. So dedicated account with the privilege access management component or privilege identity management components. So dedicated with just-in-time effects. So you're not with your dedicated admin account. You don't have that kind of permission level or authorization level by default.
Right.
You need to ask for it, and you will probably get it granted more or less automatically. We just don't want you to be at that power, a level of power all the time, or for the
Right.
time being, right? In case something happens accidentally, so we're not ending up with any other type of trouble. Otherwise, if I mean, you can set up an MFA where you use hardware tokens. So OAuth tokens is a very nice thing. So that way it's not in somebody's phone. It's not in
Right.
somebody's like computer. So it's a token. You know, you have it in a secure place, especially if we're talking about like customer partner related relationship type of thing. So you know this token is stored there and there. I can go acquire it, get it, and I can use it whenever I'm done. I can lend it back to its put it back in its safe storage. So maybe that could be a possible solution to take it that ways. I mean, otherwise, really, the recommendation is to use as much as possible personal account, as much as possible just-in-time effects on them.
Right.
And then as much as possible, once again, this is something I used to recommend all the time or try to get people to understand is that try to avoid as far as possible using those built-in extremely powerful permission levels. So global admin, company admin, tenant admin, etc. All of these are very special purpose things. If you want to do anything that requires this much of power, you really need to do it on more of an exception basis, right?
Right.
So this shouldn't be many accounts that have that kind of power, normally speaking, in any tenant. Like we used to say 3 to 5 maybe at most, where probably 1 or 2 of them are like kind of break the glass accounts, right?
Right.
So that you will end up with like 3 active accounts at any time, which is it feels fairly decent type of thing, even though you start, okay, isn't that too much already? So see, so try to avoid that. So try to use the delegation instead. Try to go about setting up alternative groups with more built-in delegations, maybe, and so on. Okay, I need the user to be able to do this particular thing, and then this is done more often than anything else. Try to make that analysis and see why do you actually require that much of power on a day-by-day basis,
Yeah, I think
and then
that's. Sorry, go ahead.
make it happen.
Gotcha. I was gonna say I think that's solid advice because there's so many times where I've seen an organization, they'll set up their administrative accounts and they get assigned to whoever needs them, right? And then they never stop, either after they've made those changes or on a regular basis. They never stop to say, hey, is this still how it should be today, right? Is this the appropriate level of power, like you said? I mean, it's like, I think back to some of my my Linux administration days. You don't want to run everything as a root, right? Because that's not best practice. And either A, it's a security concern, or B, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot accidentally. But
Exactly.
same kind of concept, right?
And if you're driving a business that requires because I don't know, maybe judging somebody here. If you're doing it that way because it's easy, you really need to reconsider your operations.
Right. Yep, totally agree. All right, I think we got 2 left here. So the next one we have, kind of more of an opinion question, I think. But the question reads, so when you connect with a company who wants to deliver services or licenses, they often present a partner link, right? And then when you look into the permissions needed from that link, it's often asking for global admin rights. Basically, what do you think about this is the question. So I mean, I think it's coming back to that whole OAuth application. Instead of getting really specific about, hey, we need this because of this and this because of this, it's just a blanket, give us global admin, right? So kind of what are your thoughts on that?
It's the same thing. We need to be persistent. We need to be very clear about the message. Me as a customer towards any partner, hey, do you really need that? Well,
Right.
if this is just for the sake of initially setting up something, let's do it together. Let's
Right.
work it out together. I can create a temporary admin account at that level for you, and then it can be used for just one purpose, and then we can like remove it or take away the permission levels from it and so on. So it shouldn't really. It's all about the license agreement slash the service agreement slash the agreement in general
Right.
between the customer and the partner in question. But we need to start pushing back a little bit on this and
Right.
say, hey, do you really need that? Do you understand what the extent of it? Like, give them some examples. I mean, just look at what happened recently with all the major supply chain sacks, right? So
Yeah.
the bad guys knows that if I target this partner used to have global admin access with all of their customers or partners, and then from there it's a nice and easy, very fluent journey towards owning those customers, right?
Yep.
So it's getting more and more critical. I mean, we just got in the news today or yesterday, right, about the new discovery from Microsoft security organization that the threat actors has been trying to trick some of their customers through some partners, right?
Right.
Again, so try to push a bit harder on that. Try to avoid it. I mean, use the tooling. Give the partner a just-in-time effect. Give them a temporary account. Give them a temporary authorization level, and so on. And try to keep that as an absolute bare minimum whenever possible.
Yep. Fantastic advice. So I think we're down to our last one here, and this I want to say should be an easy question, but there's so many choices as well. So the question is, what resources would you recommend for learning about how to configure M365 security settings like MFA and conditional access?
Mm. So I would say get yourself a test tenant. Get yourself just set up a tenant with all bells and whistles. Maybe an E5 license or something like that, just to get to see what's available.
Right.
Right, and then right away you will get, once again, back to the secure score. Actually, that will give you a lot of nice links towards what things you need to start working with, bothering about, and so on. And there, so start your journey from there. You need to get your hands dirty with
Right.
these kind of things, practice, and then it is not just a, well, we set it up once and forget it because nothing more is going to happen. This is sort of an evolution. A lot of things are going to change over time. There are new discoveries that will lead into, okay, you need to go back and adjust the setting to that way. So the security baseline will change over time. It's not a static thing. And our posture, or the way we expose our services and users and so on, will also change over time. Almost no business have that kind of static like exposure model. So we need to get our hands dirty. We need to see what's going on, what's available, and using a sample tenant or a demo tenant for that sake will give you a lot of insights. And then on top of that, there are a lot of recommendations. I mean, there are tons of lists, both provided by Microsoft, about like 10, 20 ways to secure this and that.
Right.
Actually, one of my favorite things is there is a publication called the Azure Security Compass.
Okay.
It's like a slide deck, approximately 150 slides that goes through
Wow.
each and every single like tiny part of Azure / Office 365 space. So they have a setup of a clear choice and preferred choice type of thing. So they will present you with, okay, we recommend you this, but you can choose this, this, and that. But we still recommend you to go that path. It's an awesome type of material. It is available on GitHub. So if you just Google search, Bing, whatever, Azure Security Compass, you will find, and then the guys behind it are updating it quite often.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, fantastic recommendations there. You know, again, for those watching, I'll be sure to put those underneath this video. So we'll gather up the links and get them all put in one place there. Other than that, I think that knocks out our last question. Hasain, I want to thank you for your time coming and answering these remaining questions. So as always, you're a fantastic resource. So thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. And for those of you watching, thanks for tuning in for this follow-up video. Again, this is a follow-up video to a webinar that we did on M365 security last week. If you haven't had a chance to watch that, you can actually watch the on-demand version of that webinar. Again, just like the other links, I'll be putting it underneath this video. So be sure to check that out if you haven't. Other than that, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you for a future Altaro and Hornet Security sponsored video sometime in the future. Have a good one.